First of all, Michael Vass Vasquez is a
Welcome.
standing co-host and contributor to the Larry Sharp Show. He's been on there. We've had some very healthy debates, and you're more politically to the right. And I'm glad. I'm glad that we could have another perspective on here. Larry, unfortunately, said he couldn't make it. So, Michael, I've been opening this up to the floor, but to the people. What are your thoughts about what's going to happen this election cycle? Will we actually have a final result count? What do you think the overall result will be? Who will get popular vote? Who will win the electoral college? Your thoughts and what's happening in your state specifically when you voted? Michael,
You're muted.
you either muted yourself or something. I can't hear you.
No, I muted myself.
Sorry.
You got me now, right?
Yes, now we can hear you loud and clear. So let's get your thoughts. Popular vote, electoral college. Who's going to win? Will there be a final result? And what's happening in your state?
No problem. So I'm in New York, and the first thing I want to do before anything else is I do want to mention hello to the chat. Hello to everyone on the panel. Kit, always good to see you again.
Thank you.
And it's kind of neat. I'm like the first time having a conservative Republican on the channel. I am honored for that.
You crossed the Rubicon.
Yeah.
Hey. But it's always wonderful to have these voices, to have these conversations. And I'll be here at least an hour. And you know what? If the chat's loving the conversation, you guys are loving it, I'll stay longer. I'm known for going long. Sunday, I did my live stream. I went 7.5 hours, which is not that unusual for me.
Yeah, you made out stronger stuff. Made out stronger stuff than me.
Yeah, that's what I do. But to give everyone a quick idea who I am, and then I'm going to go right into your questions because you guys are really going to love what I'm going to predict.
Okay.
But political commentary for 18 years now, ran for Congress, ran for county legislature as well. Obviously, didn't win. Conservative Republican, Marine Corps. And I'm a little bit older than all of you guys. So I have a slightly different perspective. Yes, I've lived in Moscow. Yes, I speak some Russian. Yes, I've been on both coasts of the United States. Been through a few things. Been through earthquakes, floods, fires, got hit by a car. Few things. So, and been homeless twice in my life. So I have a unique perspective on a few things, which bring me to a more conservative Republican point of view. So that's me in a nutshell. And I do my show every Sunday, 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. There that goes. Okay. Now let's get to the meat and potatoes. Now that you have some understanding of my background, let me explain. We're going to see 120 million votes. We're going to see a drop of 30 million votes in this election because there is no Democratic enthusiasm behind Kamala Harris for multiple reasons. And that's going to translate into an election where I believe you're going to see Donald Trump take the popular vote by about 3%. Part of that is because of mail-in ballots, which we have seen so far. For Democrats, they have always, since 2004, Democrats always have more mail-in votes than any other party. But what we have seen is that they are down somewhere around 25. Some reports are as much as 40% down from 2020 and from 2016. So there are fewer Democrat mail-in ballots, and we're seeing more ballots, either the same or more, depending on the state and the reporting, for Republicans. That's going to lead, and when we take into account that Republicans, about 45, 55% of them, like independents, show up on game day. Today, my calculation says that means it's going to be an electoral win of 312 votes for Donald Trump versus 226 for Kamala Harris. She will lose Michigan. And quite possibly, I may be underestimating, because it is possible she will lose Wisconsin as well. The key factor in that isn't Kamala Harris. It's actually Jill Stein, third party. She has done an enormous amount of work and has been very successful in Michigan in capturing a section, the Dearborn, Michigan voter, and have rallied them from across the country with high concentrations in Michigan and in Wisconsin. So I think that's going to have a major effect. She's going to come in third. She should get somewhere between 3 to 5%, given the margin of error, which is about 1.5 to 2. That means that Donald Trump wins in Michigan by about 1 to 2.5 points, which is more than enough, and possibly a similar reaction in Wisconsin. I expect. Okay, go ahead.
So let me push back here. I don't want to be the bad guy. I think
No,
everyone
go
knows
right
where I
ahead.
stand on this, but let me go ahead and push back here because both you and I live in two states that have something very interesting, and that is both our states are extremely draconian towards third parties. Now, we've both been on
Yes.
Larry Sharp's show. We've talked about the impact of third parties. When you went out to vote, and maybe I'm fast forwarding this question here, but what did you notice on the ballot when it came down to third parties? Were third parties prevalent in your district? Because for me, libertarians and some Greens were able to get on, but for presidential candidates, both New York and Illinois, Jill Stein is a write-in. Same thing for the Libertarians too, and the Libertarians got almost every single state, save for Illinois and New York. So, are you really thinking that the third parties can actually gain some momentum and really impact and shift the election, like corporate media and the Democrats are fearing?
Well, sort of. And I'm in New York State, so it is ultra blue. It is ultra progressive blue, which is different than just being normal Democrat. I'd say the average Democrat is more center left. New York is far further left, more like California to that degree. And so New York does have what they call third parties, which isn't third parties. You have a conservative party, you have the Working Families Party. Now, the Conservative Party is very much aligned with the Republican Party. They're not the same, but there isn't much of a difference. And normally they support each other's candidates in every election. The Working Families Party is basically home of the progressive movement of the Democratic wing. So they, again, very much are aligned with Democrats and often have Democratic candidates on their line as well, although they're more than willing to have further left candidates on the Working Families line. So we see that. So that's not really the third party we think of when we think of the rest of the nation. You're not seeing the Green Party. You're not seeing the Socialists. You're not seeing the independent Dr. Cornel West or even RFK. You're not seeing them on the ballot because New York has basically outlawed any other voice than what New York State approves of, and they don't want to move outside the two-party system for the most part. I voted at 3 o'clock, and sadly, even though I'm in the Bronx, we had 6,161 people at that time had voted at my, I'm in the same home my family's been in for the last 50 years. So this is a huge increase. We've been increasing in the area. There are about 20,000, 25,000 people in this community that would use that voting booth. So the numbers are not very good, to be honest. I believe that we're going to see a lot more votes for Donald Trump than probably what Democrats would be comfortable with for New York State. Now, of course, Harris will win New York, but Trump's going to have a stronger showing than they expected. Third party, yeah, I voted for a couple of conservatives. I wrote in, now sadly, my district for judges, there were 6 judges, and now there was no one running against them. Lack of money, lack of ability to get interest. The Republican Party failed. So did the Conservative Party. So they were unopposed. So I wrote in 6 different names. Once I wrote in Larry twice, wrote myself in once, and I wrote in a couple of conservative candidates running for assembly and state in a couple of spots as well. Because
as you should.
Yeah, people forget we have the right always to write in anyone we want. The government doesn't get to pick and choose who we vote for. So I agree with all you guys. Third party, I want there to be a third party because I want the best candidate to win. I want the most efficient and effective politician in any office. Right. And you only get that when you have competition. When they sit up on a stage, they debate, you get to hear them in interviews, you get to see them in person and ask them questions and they answer it. And we get the best person with the best plan. And that's the only person that should win. Now, I think that generally more Republicans and conservatives will win in that scenario than anyone else. But you know what? If there is someone who's third party who is demonstrably better, I want them. I don't care what party they're in. I want the best, only the best, because that's what America needs desperately.
Michael, so I agree. Hold on, real quick. Michael, sure. First of all, I agree with what your statement is. But see, here's my pushback. that's a high standard because even I have that high standard. But we're in the United States where money is speech and corporations are people. And in Illinois, election integrity, you're better off believing in the Loch Ness Monster and Sasquatch knocking at your door than actually, get. I mean, again, we need to have real reform in here. So one other thing too I want to bring up, and that is in regards towards how this election could turn out, the voter turnout. Then we are seeing people though. Turning out in mass, and this is something I call about voter enthusiasm. Like even where I went to vote, people were showing up. And the thing is, I was rather surprised how there was also engagement about talking about some of the local areas, especially in office that are there. And of course, you being in New York, I'm pretty sure you're well aware of what happened with Peanut. We actually went over that, and again. Yes, and it's a fascinating story about that. But in regards to the local level, because after election night, people are just going to take it easy, and you've been involved in the political process, as has Larry. Your thoughts on the day after, the day after. I mean, how do we keep the engagement going on? Because I'm pretty sure everybody across the spectrum is just going to want to just drop their hammers, drop their shields, drop their spears and swords, and just say, all right, I'm going to sleep for the next 4 years.
Well, historically, we are at the plateau. This is the peak for the election season. The average normal person in America, they start paying attention to politics after Labor Day, September 1st, and they stop remembering anything one day, not Wednesday, but Thursday. On Thursday, massive drop in all politics because they go back to watching the Housewives of whatever the hell, and LeBron James and some other basketball players, and that's it. And that's sad because that's when all of that lame duck session, the time between Thursday and January 5th, we get to see politicians who don't give a damn. No one's holding them accountable. No one's paying attention. And they try and sneak in so many things. Now, the one thing that we're going to see this year, which is like what we saw in 2016, is, if I'm correct, and Donald Trump wins, which I believe is very likely, and I think the Democrats
know it. That's my prediction too.
Yeah,
I think most agree with that. 1 hour after it's called for Donald Trump, there will be spontaneous riots and attempts at insurrection zones, or otherwise known as autonomous zones, in the top 11 cities in America, which happen to all be Democrat-held cities that have been Democrat for at least 50 years.
I've seen some talks about that here in Chicago, and again, Angel, I'm going to give the floor to you. But real quick, I just. I got family flying in from O'Hare, and that's happening tomorrow. And one thing that's, no matter who wins, I think there's going to be a lot of vocal outrage because we had a senile senior citizen run a global superpower. So now I know how the ancient Romans felt when they had Caligula or Nero at the helm. So Angel, your thoughts?
Yeah. Well, to be fair, Biden's not running anything. So clearly we have some sort of permanent state, deep state, whatever you call it, actually running the United States during these last 4 years. But to the next point I have, it's true. Here where I live in New Jersey, there's businesses putting up like planks all over their windows and stuff because they expect riots if Trump wins. So in Washington, that's also happening. A lot of these big like blue cities or blue states there. I've seen in here where I live, there's like, they're putting up planks and stuff. Like they're expecting riots, especially if Trump wins. So yeah, I mean, I've seen it myself, which is why I agree. There's going to be riots today if Trump wins. If it's called tonight or whenever it's called, there's definitely going to be some rioting. So.
I understand. Daniel, real quick, you want to add in your 2 cents here? Go ahead. Here, let me make the microphone.
Yeah, I think that here's the big deal. We're dealing with the edge on both sides, generally, of where the human mind goes when it's in group sessions. And so I think that the reality is it's not really about who wins in terms of what we're talking about with like how people are going to respond. It's going to be question about the people that lose, because I think you're right. I think that whichever side loses is going to riot, is going to do something, because everyone seems very primed for that. So really, I think the better way to look at it is whoever wins is going to have a really good PR day, and whoever loses is going to look like a hypocrite.
And again, we got to talk about hypocrisy and a little bit of the trauma too, because, I think we've all remembered how crazy not only 2016 was, but 2020. And that brings in our next guest co-host, because again, I think we got I know, Michael, you're in here for an hour. I want to make sure I want to get your comments on that real quick here. But Nick, hey, shout out to Nick. You've been on the show a few times, and you've been an outstanding advocate. You've brought in a lot of people onto the show too who talk about trauma and going through this. And there's one thing you probably messaged me about, and that is the trauma of an election. I know, because many people have Trump derangement syndrome. And Michael, we actually talked about this the last time together. We were on Larry Sharp's show. And Angel, I know you talked about this. Jesse, you brought this up here too about Trump derangement syndrome and people having that man living in their head. So how do we get past this derangement, man? How do we, because again, tomorrow, anything's going to happen. None of us can really predict the future. We can make our predictions and our thoughts with the data before us and even our own biases. I have my biases. We all do. How do we get through this, Nick?
Oh, well, I don't have an answer for you, because I think what is going to happen is one way or another, we're going to have massive emotional meltdowns on whichever side ends up losing. And I think, just really the way both campaigns have been run have continued the dividing. So it's not even like there's a chance that we're going to be any more close together. So I know for me, and what I tell people is like, you've got to just kind of check in with yourself, what you can handle, what you can't handle, put up boundaries. If you don't want to talk about it, don't talk about it. If you don't want to read about it, get off of the internet, and kind of just protect yourself, because whatever side wins, the other side's coming.
Now, Michael, we actually talked about Trump derangement syndrome, and then Angel, Snow, I want you to get your thoughts on this too. Look, I've made this joke where if Trump wins, I'm looking forward to watching the liberals melt down and feast on their tears. But I've never seen anybody trigger so many people, and I've made this comment before, that secretly a lot of these liberals, and I'm going to call them out: Cenk Uygur of TYT. You got Rachel Maddow of MSNBC, and I'm just using those two as examples. I think secretly they wish they could be like Trump, and I just got to say, maybe it's because of just Trump how he acts. Because again, he used to be a Democrat, now a Republican, and yet somehow people are calling him Hitler 2.0. So I'm gonna bring this example up: the Tony Soprano's conversation they had with Bobby Balalanka as they're eating dinner. Bobby says, Quasimodo, he predicted all this, and Tony's like, what? Yeah, Quasimodo, the end of the world. He said, Nostradamus and Notre Dame. Nostradamus is the guy who predicted the Hunchback of Notre Dame. Notre Dame and Nostradamus. Notre Dame and Nostradamus. 2 different things altogether. First name Adolf, last name Hitler, and Donald Trump. 2 different people altogether from 2 different eras of 2 different political systems and of 2 different countries. Michael, Trump derangement syndrome. How dare you advocate for somebody living rent-free in their people's heads? Michael, go ahead. Floor is yours.
Well, it's to be expected. I mean, we have Democrats who have been going since, well, you can easily say since the Obama administration, since 2008, we have seen that Democrats have been focused on 2 things: emotions and, more specifically, fear. This has been their driving message, because they've always made the same promises, not to say that many Republicans don't do the same thing, but in a different way. Democrats have to have the emotion to get them through an election. And the most powerful emotion they can target is fear, which is why we hear a lot of Trump is going to create World War III. Trump is going to take away women's rights. Trump is going to go after all the Muslims, blah, 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 on down the line. Every single fear they could possibly throw at you. But they always keep out of their mind the fact that we've already had 4 years of Trump. We have a track record. We know what he has done. And his rhetoric has matched exactly what he said in the first 4 years. And that gives us every reason to believe he would do. Actually, he's bending over to be even more centrist, looking at the Maha movement, which he's incorporated and he's confirmed is going to continue to go forward if he gets his administration. Looking at now, we have Elon talking to Ron Paul on behalf of his government efficiency department that he wants to put together to reduce the size of government, reduce the national debt, which is good for poor people. It's good for the middle class, far more than anything that we've heard about in decades. So it's that fear, and we've seen that fear has been instilled in 8 years from the at an institutional level in our schools. That's why we saw the first assassin try and kill Trump. He went through 8 years of being programmed in school, in college, in TV, in movies, nothing but fear, fear, fear. And when he sees the writing on the wall, Trump's going to win, his only reaction was to say, well, then I have to be the hero. I have to go and take out Hitler. Well, guess what? That's all about the emotional push. It's hiding the lack of substance that we see in Kamala Harris, most specifically, and also in Joe Biden, who's a part-time zombie. But it's more specifically about that fear. That's how Democrats are ruling. And as they put in more fear into our country, we get more divided and we get closer and closer to becoming an autocratic kind of country. More,
I believe we're already there. We're already there. We're already there for sure. Hold on.
I would say far, what we think is close to it, what they're moving us towards is far worse than anything we're seeing right now.
Now,
I think over the...
Go ahead, Nick. So real quick, because I want to bring in Angel and Snow. So, Nick, I'll come to you after Snow's commentary. But first, let's talk about the fear, because there is this fear of Trump and what he could do or possibly do or whatever do. But there's this fear, this ungodly fear of this man who probably doesn't even give a damn that some of these people even exist. Angel, Trump derangement syndrome. Why is it in your head?
It's not in my head, but why is it in other people's head? Well, I mean, there's the entire corporate media, the entire mainstream media, whatever you want to call it. They're all anti-Trump, except for Fox. But even some in Fox have become anti-Trump. So it's like you get all of this programming 24/7. Trump is evil, Orange Man bad, whatever. You know, you get it 24/7. And most independent media now, online independent media, is doing it. They're feeding that Trump derangement syndrome rule to the people, and people are eating it. Even people without cable. You even get rid of cable, go to online media. Most of us are still doing it. Not us here, but most of us are still doing it. So it's just, I understand why people fall for it. But if you just pay attention a little bit and watch us, instead of the Young Turks or Kyle Kalinske, whoever you watch, then you'll quickly wake up out of that. Or at least that's my hope. Maybe you won't. Maybe you're just Trump derangement syndrome and you hate Trump no matter what, because he represents every evil that you stand against, even though unfortunately Democrats do more, if not worse, than Trump. So those are my thoughts.
So real quick here, Snow, I do want to get your comments in here, but folks, gentlemen, all of us, and Greg, I do see you. Please be on standby. But we do have some information coming in right now. So you're hearing it here first from Hardlands Media. As it stands, breaking news. As it stands, Indiana, 1% reporting in. It is light red, as well as the great state of Kentucky, 2% reporting in. Those are both leaning in for Trump. I mean, I'm not surprised by it. But
states.
I mean, these are red states. But again, these are just the early stages results. Folks, anything can happen. And if you're expecting a TYT meltdown, the only thing that I'm going to be sad about is if third parties don't get the coveted 5%. I promise you, my meltdown will be great. And yes, the panic liberal, Michael, I don't think you've seen it. The panic liberal will show up a little bit later in the live stream. Don't worry, he'll be there. But
we do love ourselves a panic liberal.
Listen, you have no idea. Snow, Trump derangement syndrome. Do you have it? That's like the rabies, like with Peanut the squirrel, R.I.P. or Fred the squirrel. What the fear of Trump derangement syndrome? Your thoughts?
I don't have TDS. I have IDS. I'll let you guys figure out what that stands for. Or BDS or NDS. Anyway, so Trump derangement syndrome. I'm just gonna give my take, and you know me. Sometimes I have to hit it from a psych angle. And this is no different. So I've always had a theory about Trump derangement syndrome in general. And that's you have to operate under the provisional conclusion that we are most likely ruled by narcissists and psychopaths. Probably narcissistic psychopaths. Probably just a whole mix of cluster B stuff. So I feel like the big difference between someone like Donald Trump and the liberals is kind of the difference between a grandiose narcissist, which is like a narcissist who very much just acts the part. Trump, perfect example, but there's plenty of them in front of a camera. Versus what's called a covert narcissist, which is a narcissist who has a veneer, and essentially acts in the same self-important way, but they have enough of a mask that they can appear as if they're not. And I feel like a lot of people with those types of personality traits, I feel like, as was stated before, they are pretty much jealous of Donald Trump because he doesn't have to operate with that veneer. He doesn't have to operate with that facade that you see a lot of these crazy people. Like my perfect go-to for a covert narcissist is probably Hillary Clinton. Because
prime example.
You can tell when she gets triggered and she just keeps it together, but you can see some of the cracks forming on the mask just here and there. You can tell that she's about to rip off the mask, and she's got that reptile face from Mortal Kombat. Anyway, I'm about to segue hard, but
well, you're not wrong.
Let's circle back on that though. Let's circle back to
well, actually, true. Because
But,
go ahead. Because Snow, then Nick, and then Jesse. Trump derangement syndrome, and then there's a couple other questions I do want to bring up because I know Michael. Time,
don't worry about the time. Don't worry about time. We'll
talk.
talk.
Go ahead, Snow. Go ahead, Snow.
Yeah, I think that's a big part of Trump derangement. I think it is jealousy. I think when you have to go through life being largely self-important and have a grandiose sense of self, but you feel like in order to maintain your position or your standing with the people who provide you with validation and help you achieve your prime aims, you have to keep that mask on. And I feel like a lot of people are very jealous because Trump doesn't have to. He can just go off. He can come up with, I will admit, hilarious names for his for his rivals, like Sleepy. My favorite's still Sleepy Joe personally. It's perfect. But
Lion Ted is gold.
Lion Ted. Well, what's Marco? What's Little Marco?
No.
Little Marco.
Little boy Rubio.
Little boy Rubio.
No, it's not. Is it really?
Yes, it was. I haven't gone. I'm going to go crazy, and I had a little manic episode. But trust me, my brain still works. Little boy Rubio. That's what he was called.
But yeah,
but okay.
Basically, the takeaway is I feel like it is largely envy, which is also a primary trait of people with narcissistic traits, because they have to keep that mask on. And to see someone who doesn't need that, and he still has a very large following, and he's very popular, and he does well in the arena that he exists in. I think it is predominantly envy, but of course, I'll be the first one to say, there's a lot of cult-like behavior with two-party enjoyers in general. You've got CNN and everybody telling their audiences that this is like the next iteration of every dystopian novel we read as a kid, and saying this person's bad every single day. You're kind of gonna get it. A lot of people are kind of gonna get programmed. So I think the takeaway is mostly envy, but it's also just conditioning. It's conditioning. If you see someone saying the same thing over and over every single day, it's gonna get in the back of your head. So that's just my take.
It's
but
conditioning.
mostly
Now, Nick, I think you and Snow are going to really hit it off because you've had a lot of talks with people with in regards to therapy and everything else in regards to that subject matter on your podcast. But your thoughts on what Snow brought up in regards to narcissism and the political system, because you were bringing up a lot of good stuff in our private conversation before I went live the day before yesterday.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think there's a lot of narcissism. There's a lot of envy. I tend to lean more in the people are being propagandized to the extreme and they don't even know it. And you have a right media and you have a left media. You have a quote center media, as some people would like to describe News Nation or CNN. And what everyone's getting in their news and then what they're getting in their social media algorithms is all just feeding this narrative that they have. And it's all propaganda working simultaneously to reinforce your beliefs for the things that you support and the things that you don't. And what I've noticed in my life over the last 8-9 years is there's a lot of projection that goes on in general with Trump. I remember 2016, I predicted he would win. And I didn't vote for him, and I won't vote for him, but I predicted he'd win. And I came into work the next day, and people were mad at me, like I did it, like it was my fault. And I think it just—
And it is your fault.
It is. Maybe this time it would be too. But I think what gets inside people's head is they have this good versus evil mentality, and I need to be a good guy. And I'm a good guy if I'm with Trump because we're going to make America great again, or I'm a good guy if I'm with the Democrats or Kamala or Joe or whomever that is, because we're going to defend our freedom and our democracy against, tyranny and Hitler. And you have these battle lines drawn to the point where all you're getting is reinforcement. You're getting news clips, you're getting your social media algorithms reinforcing this over and over and over everywhere you look, to the point where like people don't have a critical thought anymore. And I don't even blame them, because when you're propagandized so hard every which channel you go into for your personal life, for your media, for whatever people in your life, people surround themselves with their circles. We can't have conversations with people that disagree with us anymore. And you're just constantly getting that reinforcement. And when it's propaganda, in my view, on all sides for the most part, then you're going to have this divide. You're going to have people that have Trump derangement syndrome. You're going to have people that, and I have someone in my life that said a few weeks ago that it's okay that the Democrats installed Kamala Harris because they had to this time because we've got to beat Trump. And it's well, they're going to have to this time. They're going to have to next time because they're going to have to beat person X. So it's just, it's this conditioning that they do. It's the constant propaganda. You can't escape it. And I don't even blame people who have TDS. I think that they didn't wake up one day and say, I'm gonna catch some TDS here. It just happened over time. And it's just been so consistent and in every channel that unless you live and breathe this every day, like a lot of us do, or follow it very closely, or listen to shows like this, or listen to independent media that is representing multiple sides, like you're not going to be able to form your own opinion. And I think that's the case with people who are casual, political consumers.
Agreed. Go ahead, Michael, and then I want to give Jesse, and then I'm going to bring in Daniel. So go ahead, Michael.
Just a quick thing about that is that we've seen that kids aren't being taught anymore. The reason why there's no critical thinking is because it's been removed from our schools. If you start from, and as we have seen, I mean, look at Libs of TikTok is a great example of it. There has been an indoctrination system that has been in place, taking kids from kindergarten all the way through college. None of that is right-leaning. That is all left-leaning. And they are being trained, and we heard this from George Carlin. Yeah. You have to be smart enough to push the button, but not smart enough to ask a question why you did it. And that's what we've been seeing. TDS is a result of the lack of critical thinking because it's been indoctrinated. And that's where we're seeing the problem. So it's a direct result of that. But go ahead, Jesse. I want to hear.
Jesse, can I ask a question on that really quickly? I'm sorry.
Hold on. Wait. No, Jesse. You've been quiet for too long. I do want to get to Nick, but hold on, because Nick, I want your question to come up, but I want Daniel also add in his 2 cents too, because I want to make sure everyone gets a chance to speak. Jesse, Trump derangement syndrome. What's been spoken about here so far? I mean, you've been in music, you've been covering art, you've been doing so much work behind the scenes. Your thoughts?
I would say it's really fascinating how efficient of a job they've done making him the be-all, end-all bad guy. It went from the GOP to just Trump. That's people just say Trump, and it's a great opportunity for any Republican that stood with him before to be able to say, "Well, I mean, fuck that guy. That's not the direction we want." And it really manages to have him kind of die for the whole of the GOP's sins, in that once he's out of the picture, all of a sudden, all these politicians that people used to know better about, like Dick Cheney, suddenly get a full pass because they've already jumped ship. They've already distanced themselves from Hitler 2.0. And
Darth
now
Vader.
all of a sudden, all these Republicans are welcomed in with open arms, who we should know better about, like George W. Bush. Instantly it's like, oh well, you get a pass because you've separated yourself from Donald Trump, and it's fascinating how people need that connection to make. If you say something they don't agree with, you don't have to say Donald Trump's name. You can be talking about something completely different, and they need to go, oh, so you're a Trump voter. Like, that's what they have to be able to attach to you, to discredit you, no matter what you're talking about. And that is, again, that's their be all end all. That's their excuse to be able to justify whatever they want to do. And in the same way that, if, let's say, Jill Stein gets a staggering amount of votes, the Democrats will sabotage that. They will fudge those numbers. And even if it comes out, people will go, I mean, this is such an important election. Jill Stein was just going to ruin the whole thing anyway. We're past the point of looking at democracy as multiple parties and multiple viewpoints. It is this two-party system, and that is rigid and fixed in people's minds, that no matter what kind of accountability pops up regarding election interference or third-party candidates getting the runaround, people are fine with it because they've been convinced that's impeding the progress and not an essential part of the progress that's been just sapped dry over the last few decades.
Okay, Daniel, go ahead.
I want to just broaden this out for a bit for everyone talking. Here's the real fight that's happening. This is just, again, a stand-in for all these other stand-ins that are happening in the world right now. Humanity for its entire time has been a community-based group of people. You know the people that you work with, you know your community. That's how human civilization has always existed. Then this thing called the internet comes around, and everyone switched from location-based, geographic-based community. We're now at demographic-based communities. That's the people algorithmically that you connect with, which is a huge issue. We should really be talking to people we disagree with a lot more, because it's not normal to have everyone in the same mindset. That said, where we're at right now is we're basically arguing between quantum mechanics and general relativity. One is a top-down view, one's a bottom-up view, but they both describe the universe. That's every conservative, all the things that you could grab on for all of history, religion, family, community, all these things feel like they're crumbling from that perspective. If you're a progressive, you feel like everything is evil all the time and nothing's changing and everything's static. Both groups have lost their thing to grab onto that feels safe, because everything is changing. It's as if every single cultural idea throughout the world is a invasive species, and they all have been put in one area. Now they're fighting to the death. That's why it doesn't matter in a lot of ways who gets elected, because that fight's still going on. Eventually, there's going to be in every category a winner that the world is going to have to agree with, because there's going to be a majority. People are going to agree, but there's going to be something as we sort of coalesce as a species. And right now, this is just the battleground that it's taking place in. Is, do we go more in a let's kind of cling on to what we did before? But my point is, there's no answer that we can give. Everything's going to happen. I think the reality is that it doesn't matter who wins. It matters how long people are going to fight trench warfare mentality, where you give up a huge amount of losses to gain basically nothing. And at some point in the future, someone's going to win in each category. And right now, people that think that if Trump gets elected, everything's going to be saved and be awesome is foolish, as it is the exact opposite with Kamala. People are trying to grasp meaning, and they have nothing to hold on to. And that's why everyone's freaked out right now. That's my take.
All right. So first of all, shout out to Daniel. Daniel dropping the bombs. Give it up for Rogel Dorn reincarnated. No, Michael. Daniel's a Warhammer 40K fan too. And I call him Rogel Dorn, but he's more of like a reboot Gilliman. But when he drops,
he sounds like Alpha Marine.
Yeah. He's an Imperial Fist. So there you go. But there's
the Emperor protects always.
Yes, he does. Snow.
Always.
Yes, he does. Correct. That's the real winner of this election. So, Nick, you were going to add in some commentary before I give the floor to you. After Nick's commentary, I'm going to have bring up some of the recent polling data, update the map, and then I got a video which is going to be throwing a live grenade. And Michael, I think both you and I, we served in the Marine Corps, so we both know about a live grenade. This one's going to be exploding, and I'll give you the first chance to respond to it. It'll just only be a short 1 minute video. Yeah, it's basically a 1 minute video. So, Nick, you were going to add in something, so I want to give the floor to you.
Yeah, I was just going to say, based on what Michael was saying, when you have the indoctrination in schooling to kill critical thinking, I agree with you, and I haven't been in school in a while, but I remember it starting to be sort of a lost art back even when I was in school. But what I think that explains a lot of where we're heading and how we're kind of walking into it. And, I've been saying for a while that the left is bringing censorship. The left is bringing 1984 to us. And I think that where I get stuck is how many boomers and older folks have TDS as well. And I'm like, is that just because they're still watching, MSNBC? Is it like, because they learned civics classes, they were taught critical thinking skills, they were writing papers on all of that stuff and learning how to apply critical thinking to things, but yet they still fell into the same trap.
Authority bias.
Again,
It's real simple. They live their life with authority bias. If you're talking with the older generations, they still look at the news media like it's Walter Cronkite, not like it's Rachel Maddow. They see her with the same credibility. I mean, 60 Minutes was supposed to be the most credible of the news because they asked the hard questions. And what did they just do? They threw that all away to edit Kamala Harris to make her look more intelligent and better than she is. But if you ask the majority of older people, we're talking 60 and above, they'll tell you 60 Minutes, the most credible thing on the news.
Yeah,
but it's not.
That's a fantastic point. So just a couple of things here, Jen, in regard to the 60 Minutes thing. Hold on, I just want to make sure that I at least have got to put the order in, because what I'm going to drop next is going to be a landmine. It's going to be a live grenade. But real quick, when it comes down to editing and doing content, each of us have done interviews. Each of us have done shows. All of us have podcasts. We're on various platforms. No one would ever take us seriously, or either that we would face some kind of banishment or demonetization, or either that lose subscribers if we edited an interview that was seen live on air. Michael, you've been on my show. Nick, you've been on a show. All of you have been in my show in some form or the other. I do any kind of editing that makes you look good or bad that reflects poorly on me, and that's the state of corporate media. So real quick here, I do want to bring this up here in regards to polling that's still going on. 666 votes, 667 votes in regards to who people are voting for. Trump at a strong 23%, Harris at 1%, independent third party, that's including all third party and independent candidates, 51%, and not voting 25%, not voting still in second place. That's quite incredible to see. Also, in regards to the election map, no other state has shown up any results yet. And now for the live grenade that I will be dropping. And by the way, Greg, I do see you in the chat, so give me a thumbs up when you are ready, because I do want to bring you in like within the next 20 minutes. But real quick here, let's go ahead and do some breaking. This is going to be the live grenade moment. All right, folks, get ready. Last election ever.
I saw this.
Everybody. Last election ever. Okay.
I made a post about this.
Look. Okay. And everybody's saying it's the last election ever. Last election ever. Last election ever. No, it's not, because how's corporate media and everybody else supposed to make the key word? The 5-letter word is called MONEY. But let's play this video again. It's just something that boils my blood. I see it across the entire political spectrum, and I think all of us here are pretty reasonable here. Like last election, no, that's still going to be ongoing.
Well, I'll say it again, man. I think this is the last election. If Trump doesn't win, this is the last election.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
I think you're right.
You're right.
People and a lot of people are waking up and realize that have been lifelong Democrats. Guys like Bill Ackman, guys like Chamath,
Yeah, exactly.
Tulsi Gabbard switched over to the Republicans. Like there's a lot of people who their whole life they've been left wing, and they realize like I can't do this anymore.
You and I used to be Democrats.
Yeah.
So
yeah. It's nuts.
It's nuts.
Yeah, and then you got rich.
If the Dems win this election, they will legalize enough illegals to turn the swing states, and everywhere will be like California. There will be no escape.
That is so insane.
This is the final. This is it.
No, it's not. It's not the final election. So,
I made a post on this.
So, Michael, okay, because we actually I think we talked about this on Larry Sharp's show the two times we were on there. in regards towards, okay, is this the last? No, it's not. No, it's not. I mean, I think we're both students of history. I think all of us have read our fair share of history books, and I'm looking forward to seeing the whole panel. Michael, we'll start off with you, and then we'll go to Jesse, Angel, Snow, Nick, and then I'll bring in Greg too to give the final word. I'm pretty sure Daniel will have his 2 cents too to bring in. So, final election ever. Is this it? Is it finally over, and we start marching to the camps and obeying our corporate overlords and listen to Big Brother?
Okay, so if we're listening to them literally, no, they're wrong. They're absolutely wrong, and that is overblown. That is that's equally fear mongering, as bad as anything else we've seen from the TDS crowd. Absolutely, but I think there's an element to it that is correct, and let me explain what I mean. It's the emotion behind it. It's the fear that's behind that, because when Elon continued to speak, he started to clarify what he was saying. I think it was bad wording, because he's afraid of what we have been told. According to Kamala Harris in her interview in ABC News in Philadelphia, and then again with MSNBC, she said the open border is a means to get a path to citizenship that will have a second-class citizenry that will vote Democrat. Otherwise, they lose their citizenship. They lose everything they will gain from that.
In that in Chicago.
And so it'll be a slave. Yeah, and it's in New York too. And so you'll have that slave, second-class citizen slave class. And that, if you add 8 million, imagine we add, as close as this race is, depending on who you're talking to, you add 8 million votes. And of that 8 million, you've got 6 million of them voting for their self-interest, which is they have to vote Democrat or they lose everything. Yeah, you still have an election, but it turns into when I was living in Moscow, it turns into their elections. You have a dead guy and you've got the party man, who you can vote for either one. It's a free election, but you've got a dead guy and a party man. And by the way, if you vote for the dead guy, there's going to be someone from the party knocking on your door afterwards. And they also have that fear of understanding that we no longer have free elections, no matter how much you may want to question them as they are now. We've never had a candidate appointed before. And that is groundbreaking for America. And that's the fear that I think a lot of people on the left who are leaving the left and moving more center, if not center right, is that, yeah, we just got shown in explicit terms. One, they lied to us. Joe Biden is a part-time zombie president. He works 5 days a week.
You're being too generous about that, working 5 days a week. I got to push back on how
exactly. And he's working from 10 a.m. till 4 p.m. And we have no idea. No one's asking who's in charge the other 18 hours a day. But not only did we get to see that, then we saw them say, because of the money, he's kicked out because he couldn't possibly win, and that would cost them the House and the Senate. That's the problem. He was turning Democrats away. They weren't going to show up. So they kicked him kicked him off and out the bus, ran him over. And then they said, okay, we need to get Kamala because of, one, she's got the money. They couldn't access the $300 million that was raised for Biden if she wasn't on the ticket. 2, she's a woman. 3, she's black. So now we can get to call everyone an ist and a phobe if they don't support her, which has been her campaign, especially to black men. You don't vote for her, you're not black. What's wrong? You're a traitor to your own race. This is insanity. So in those contexts, I can understand why someone would say this is the last free and open and transparent election. That I could say possibly if Democrats win, yeah, because that's what they've told us and what they have shown us. But is it the last election? Oh, absolutely not.
Jesse, starting off with you, last election ever. Is this it, or as according to your music, hey, it's kind of over, buddy?
Oh, geez. I think we'll have another one. I think, honestly, even if things were really bad, like Fallout level bad, they'll still keep the normalcy train rolling. But I do feel like a lot of the preparations, like all the cities that are boarding up their windows, I feel like that expectation is more of the expectation of violence from Trump supporters if Kamala wins. I feel like they expect them to go berserk if Trump doesn't win because Trump will contest the election. That's where they project the violence expectation onto. I don't think they expect a celebration riot, but I do feel like the Harris administration is the sleek, streamlined, expedited, techno-fascism that we're in line for one way or another. I am obviously infinitely more afraid of
I'm
it.
doing a switch over here. Daniel's going to be maintaining the board.
But let's get Daniel materializing out of thin air again. Very quantum leap again. I really love that, Daniel. I'm endlessly impressed by that.
You were certainly one hell of a psyker, my friend.
The Abyss also ate Kit in exchange, so I hope Kit's okay on the other side.
No, he's
He'll be fine.
He'll
be
like,
fine.
Daniel, get in here. I got to jump out for so Snow. I think you're up next.
Yeah. So, is this the last election? I have a lot of thoughts on this. First and foremost, if nobody has done this, I would urge everybody to go to YouTube and just type in the illusion of choice, hit enter, select the first thing that comes up. That'll be a very good, helpful thing from the Church of Carlin. Is it the election? I'm going to be honest. I don't feel like first past the post voting is very democratic to begin with. I also have serious doubts about whether or not America is a democracy at all. I think they will maintain the illusion of choice one way or another. I definitely have an idea of where we're headed, which is probably some version of technocratic neo-feudalism. Maybe they'll call it some kind of reset. Not sure.
It might be great if they do.
It might be great. That's correct. I, for one, look forward to our pods and our bugs. Thank you. But yeah, I think they'll maintain the illusion for as long as possible. I feel like we are slowly being kind of herded into a digital prison. And I feel like this is what I'm really worried about. I feel like by the time the masses realize they're there, it's going to be too late and they won't need the illusion of choice any longer. Because they'll have you. They'll have the digital ID. They'll have the, all the stuff. They'll have your digital ID. They'll be able to freeze your bank account, which as a Canadian, I already have a little bit of familiarity with now, don't I?
Goddamn Canadian.
Still bitter about that shit.
Yeah. So I think because I know Kit's here now, but I think if we're asking if this is the last election, I basically agree with everyone's take. I think we're all basically on the same page that no, it technically won't be the last election, but we're heading on a very clear trajectory and a very clear direction that we've been on for a very substantial period of time. And again, it feels like there are no good choices available to us anymore. At this point in time, every choice is almost strictly like a business decision in that everything has a trade-off. Every single, no matter who you pick, it doesn't feel like there's good in it. It feels like it's hard. It's hard to exist in this era. And whether or not voting matters, I suppose it's sort of, I feel like it's, again, within a bigger picture of where we are. What is humanity going to be once humanity is connected to itself? And I think that I sort of feel like, at least my take is that we have the potential to be more free and have more rights to protect ourselves and live our lives than we will ever have. And I think that's a possibility on one hand. And I think on the other hand, we have the possibility of being herded into a smaller and smaller cage. And so I look at it as these aren't the two possibilities. These are the bounds of the conversation. The reality is going to be somewhere in between because as we know, humans can't ever do anything together. So it's always going to be a split. There's always going to be a spectrum of people. We'll see how it goes. I just hope that looking back on this, people look back at this stream, other streams, and are able to say, whatever the outcome is, let's hope for a second it's good, that we were at least a small part of getting humanity to a better outcome.
All right.
I was actually thank you for reminding me. This is how ADHD goes. You remember what you were going to say a while after, like everything's happened. I think I probably speak for everyone in saying that one thing we desperately need back as a society is community. Period. That's all I'm going to say. I think that's a major thing we are missing. And I'm old enough to remember, I don't know if it's the internet. I don't know if it's propaganda. I don't know if it's the inherent division that is across the board, but I remember being a lot closer with my neighbors, with people in my area, talking to people more, being friendlier with people more. Yes. And I miss that because we don't have it now. It doesn't feel like it to me. It feels like it's been gone for a while, where I don't really talk to my neighbor anymore, aside to apologize for my dog pissing on his garbage.
That's fine.
Just kidding. That doesn't happen every week.
That's fine.
It does. But that's what I feel like we're really, really missing. And it's really weird being old enough to have seen that kind of shift, because it's definitely happened, at least for me, when it's like, wow, we don't talk to each other anymore. We're on the internet, sure. We're on podcasts together, sure. But we're talking, on message boards, or God, that aged me. But like we're not.
We're on AOL Instant Messenger together talking about these things.
Yeah. Everyone's like, Himbo's on 4G.
No, let me
so real quick here. I just want to get in Michael, but Jesse, Michael, Angel, Snow, you guys commented, as a Daniel. So Nick, you'll have the final word. But Michael, go ahead. Michael, I want you wanted to add in something. Go ahead.
Well, you just mentioned something about age, and I'm over half a century old. Actually, I have no problem telling you my age. I'm 56.
You are the vulnerable dreadnought, then.
Yes, and
both are.
So, hey, I don't mind. I earned it, and you get this old because you earned it. Now, the thing you just mentioned, though, Snow, is absolutely correct. Because I remember you used to be able to, as a kid, you were playing on the block, and everyone on the block was your parent watching you at that time, and they tell you to go home when the lights start going down, and you did, and kids were safe. I remember you could make a phone call to your friend, and if they didn't pick up, you weren't going over to their house. They weren't coming over to yours. That was it. You hung up and you said, okay, well, we'll try again later. There was a need to be in person constantly. And now we've been devolving that. And as we get less direct personal interactions, and God help us after 2020, it's gotten so much worse. That broke the nation. That broke the world. We've lost that connection, and that is making everything else that was a problem, that was like throwing gasoline onto the fire. So that's why it feels so much worse for so many people. I've seen it over 50 years, and I can tell you in the last 5, we have gone like it's rocket fuel going crazy in the separation and the isolation that we've seen. So, and that's why we see suicides are up. Drug
self-deletion
are up.
Yeah, self-deletion. Sorry,
self-deletion.
YouTube. So, Nick,
at the
go ahead. So go ahead, Snow, and then Nick, and then Greg. Last election ever. So Snow, go ahead.
At the end of the day, not to psych nerd out again, but sorry, I'm not going to be less annoying. My apologies, but to give another psych angle. At the end of the day, we are social animals. And I feel like we're at a really weird spot where we're not getting our social needs met from society. I don't think, crap posting on Twitter is gonna really fill that void. And I feel like part of that might entirely be by design, because theory I've always had is that, well, if we're all separated and we're all isolated, well, one person can't really do much, can they? A bunch of people getting together to solve a greater issue can get a lot done. But oh my God, shut up! Some dude is like just blaring his truck stuff. I live in the country, so. But yeah, that's all I was gonna say. It's I feel like it's really, really, really unhealthy. The direction we're going just as social animals, period, because we're essentially trying to become like kind of solitary in our everyday lives, and I don't think that's natural.
No, it's not. So, Nick, now, last election ever, and then Greg, I'm going to give you the final closing statements on that. Nick, your thoughts, my friend. I think you might be muted, so you might want to unmute yourself.
I'll unmute myself. On that note, there's an epidemic from the Surgeon General declared last year of loneliness in this country. And I think that what we've done and what was escalated by COVID, as I think Michael said, was that we have taken a digitalization of our communication and our interactions and skyrocketed it up to the moon. And what that does is it's habit forming, but it's not just habit forming. You're literally messing with the chemicals in your brain when you are choosing to scroll social media, interact through a Zoom call, or even interact this way versus having those face-to-faces. So when the chemicals in your head and in your body are so disrupted, they get depleted much earlier. And by the time it's 5 o'clock and you're heading outside, you don't want to talk to your neighbors because mentally you're too fatigued. And so that is what's really driving some of these behaviors that we have or don't have anymore when we want to interact with one another, or we want to not feel lonely, or we want to build connection. Like, those are all chemicals that happen in our bodies and in our brains that make those in-person real life connections, but we're depleting them with almost these like faux digital communications and digital interactions instead of doing them in real life. So on that note, on the election note, is this going to be the last election? No. Do I think that it could have been the last truly almost democratic primary? No, we might have already had that in 2020. And that's where I get much more concerned, because as I've been politically active since 2008, and then in 2016, when I came back and was like, this Bernie Sanders guy makes sense to me. And I saw what was going on with the media. And then I saw how he was talking to 100,000 people at the LA Coliseum on YouTube while Donald Trump and all the mainstream media were waiting for Donald Trump to give a speech. And I was like, how am I seeing this on YouTube, but I'm not seeing it on the news? And they're literally just commentating about what is crazy thing is Trump going to say. And that kind of like opened my eyes to all of this stuff. And what they did in 2016, they escalated in 2020 when they realized they couldn't just shut him out anymore. So they had to turn all the candidates in the media around on him and support Biden. And then what did they do this year? They escalated it a little bit more. Didn't even bother to fake having a primary because they realized that they don't have to. And if they have a boogeyman in the last 9 years, it's been Donald Trump, they don't have to do anything. So what I'm concerned about is a primary process that's fair and legitimate, because I think we've already lost that. And I don't know how we get that back. And what does a general election matter if we're just voting against propped up candidates?
Agreed. Greg, another contributor of INN Indie News. I believe you are muted, or you muted yourself.
He is muted.
I'm unmuted now.
Yes, we can hear you just fine. The floor is yours. I'm going to give you the final word, and then I got something that's also
on the last election
upset people. So there you go.
I saw a bit of those clips. I do post for House Buzz a little bit. But Nick, that revelation is I mean, when you say that Democrats have just realized that that Trump as a boogeyman can like enable them to just completely cancel a primary. That's like, I don't know. I feel like that makes sense. With in terms of like the last election, listen, I mean, we haven't really had an election, to be honest. Not at least since probably sometime in the 50s. Because you realize that even if you get your guy in, even if you got your guy in, they can just fucking shoot him. They can just shoot him and boop, that's it. He's done. And then your whole movement is screwed. And I don't think they do that anymore. I mean, granted, you could say whatever the Trump shootings were. I don't, necessarily know if that was, state acted or not yet. But I do know JFK was deliberate. And, that's that. I think that was the coup of this country, really. That was like really when kind of the inner mechanisms of control kind of seeped in. Their octopuses that's when they really sunk their teeth in, I would say. Yeah. And right now we're kind of operating from a point. I mean, we're operating from like the relative like probably like 1500s. Obama repealed the habeas corpus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's like disguised feudalism. Klaus Schwab will say it out loud, like he will tell you, the fourth industrial revolution, AI, and this is what AI is about. This is why they're able to introduce things now like ChatGPT and stuff. It's because they've had this technology for a very long time. They're introducing it to you now so you can get hooked and so you can understand how it works, so that you can become dependent on it. And that they're already working the controls. They're already telling the AI what they can't and can say. What they're trying to operate is an entire feudal class, but not even based on economics anymore, but on consciousness. And this, I think people should read like Integral Theory by Ken Wilber a little bit, where like they're trying to make a down class of citizens that are so mentally degraded that they need the establishment. You can't live without the establishment. You need us. You can't get rid of us. You need us. That's the plan.
You make me think of Whitney Webb quote.
So there's two things
Snow
here.
touched on that too.
That I want to bring up here. First of all, Greg, you might want to fix your mic a little bit. You're kind of coming in and out a little bit fuzzy here and there. I mean, if you can.
Okay.
But see if you can. But this is what I like about this conversation. Again, if you look at everybody else that's talking about this election, they're only focusing on Trump. They're only focusing on Kamala. They're not really addressing the major issues. And again, look, I'm already looking at the numbers coming in. Right now, Kamala, at least as it stands for Indiana and Kentucky, again, all early stuff right now. Trump somewhat in the lead.
She's losing.
But Kamala is losing. But you want to know who again, when we bring up the last election, each of you have brought up some very phenomenal points. Each of you have brought up points of where we are. And when you see stuff like this, and Michael, I'm going to give you a chance to comment on this. Saratoga County, New York is telling voters that write-ins aren't allowed and won't be counted.
Yeah,
Found this at my polling place in upstate New York, Saratoga. I know, Greg, you sent this to me, but I wrote you in anyways. Please no write-ins. And then in another state altogether, Ohio, any vote for Jill Stein will not be counted. This one is absolutely insane. And yet
this is nuts.
And yet this is happening in our nation, in our republic, in real time. Where, okay, yeah, maybe this isn't the last election, but perhaps maybe we are walking to something that we are not truly prepared for. Michael, I want to give it to you, and then I'll be picking a couple other people to comment. So, Michael, I want to give the floor to you real quick.
Absolutely. It's part of the process of, I typed into the chat a little bit. It's part of the isolation. It's part of the separation to make you feel like you are alone, whatever your idea may be, whether you're third party, whether you're even within the main parties, which have factions amongst themselves. You're supposed to feel like if you don't agree with the approved message, you're isolated. Oops. And this is why this isn't new. They changed the law to remove your ability to write in, which is a fundamental constitutional right. But no one noticed when they did it because they kept you distracted with housewives and basketball and Orange Man Bad. And they're doing this for you. They're helping to protect you. They're trying to make it more secure. Well, no, all it did is take away your rights and freedoms and made you the bad guy. You're the outsider trying to do what you've always had the right to do in the past. It's putting you into a box and taking that box and throwing it about 10 miles away from anyone else, or at least to make you think like that so that you comply, so that you hold your head down, you don't speak up, so that you can be in some form of society, so you can have that instinctual need to be with other people. That's what we all need. And so that's why they've been enforcing this. This will not, or at least it should not, hold up to a Supreme Court case if there's a lawsuit on it. The problem is it takes so long to get there. By the time it gets there, they're going to say, well, it's moot. The election's over. It doesn't matter anymore.
Exactly.
That's why they've been kicking it down the road. But what it means is, to answer your question, Nick, we need better primaries. We need to, as a result, I don't care what party you're in. Could be, I don't care if you're a Socialist Party. I don't care if you're a Green Party. I don't care if you're an independent. We need to have people say, I'm going to support that guy, not because the party said so, but because he made sense, because I know that person. Push them to go on the local races, to move up the chain as they get better at doing it, and make sure that they aren't corrupt, to hold them accountable. And if we do that, get more new people in, not recommended by the party, but recommended by the rank and file, we will break that cycle. And that's how we get out of this. Otherwise, we're in a tunnel, and the tunnel actually is a vortex, and it just goes to hell.
Agreed. And look, folks, I know there's a lot to be bringing in right now, but real quick, while we still have time, I know again, Michael, you are here with us, and there is a time limit. But real quick, this is breaking news. All right, it's official.
We got results.
Yeah, we got results in. Trump has a solid stranglehold over Indiana and Kentucky, and the home of Bernie Sanders. Kamala's got the state of Vermont. But again, key swing state here, Florida, which will be a major factor. Right now, 4% turning in, but Florida looks like could be going to Donald Trump. So, as
Florida's a red state, pretty much.
Oh, no shot she takes Florida. No chance in hell.
It's a swing state, but he's got it. Yes.
Yeah, it is.
Florida's a red state.
But Ohio, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin are going to be states that we need to keep an eye on. So, but this is just a sign of just more to happen for this election cycle. So, while we're still here, and again, we're going to probably wait for more results tuning in. Michael, I want to give you a chance to have any final commentary so that people can find you on social media. I know, we appreciate the time coming in here and joining us. But where can people find you and support your work, and more importantly, learn more about your science fiction channel, which I was part of, and I was glad to be a participant of, because the next time we got to do Warhammer 40K conversation.
Okay. My day job, the main thing that I do is political commentary and advisement. And that's the No Soundbites Allowed, which you see right above my head. And that's on almost all social media. The big thing is, besides covering events live like I did just on Saturday with local candidates running for office, I also every Sunday do at 2:30 p.m. I do a live stream where I take in calls, comments, and talk about all the various issues. Like we were talking about voter ID. Someone called in and they were asking about voter ID. So we were talking about that. Does it make sense? Does it not? I take any kind of questions. If it's about politics, if it's anything in the last 40 years, I can handle it and I can address it. But man cannot live on politics alone. He must have bread, beer, and sci-fi. And as Kit mentioned, and he's been on it every Saturday, I try to reach out to people all across the spectrum of every type of life, whether it's politics or other life, whatever you do. I reach out to interesting people and I try and get them to come onto the show and do a top 10 sci-fi challenge where we go head to head on movies, TVs, comic books, regular books, any form of sci-fi, and go with, the best villain, the best spaceship, the best civilization, the best hero, the best supporting character, whatever it may be that week. And we come up with our top 10 list. And I compare my list versus the others. And by the way, Kit, according to the chat, I won in our battle. It was 70-30. People were liking me better. They like my choices.
This is the end of democracy. I refuse these results.
It's rigged. It's rigged.
Fuck democracy, huh?
By the way,
Dominion chat.
Yeah, I should mention the Saturday show, which is Saturday at 3 p.m. is Old Man Vass, Vass. It's so Old Man Vass. You can find it on YouTube and Rumble, and that's the Saturday show. But the rest of the week is politics. No Soundbites Allowed.
Okay. One other thing here before you do head on out, because I do want to switch things up here real quick. I want to give a chance for everyone to stretch their legs. And Jesse, if you have to stretch your legs, I would like for you to at least play 2 songs for the lovely people, because as it stands right now, Georgia leaning in favor. Again, Florida and Georgia right now with the results that are in, leaning towards
1%.
Donald Trump. So,
1%.
so there you go, gentlemen. This is what's happening. But I do want to now give the floor to Jesse. If you're good to go, everyone, if you have a chance to stretch some legs, Jesse, pick some of your favorite songs to talk about so that way people can relax a little bit. I'll be removing all of us. Jesse, the floor is yours, my friend.
No Soundbites Allowed is a podcast hosted by Michael Vass. The podcast focuses on providing in-depth discussions on various political and social issues. As the title suggests, the aim is to go beyond quick sound bites and explore topics in greater detail. Michael Vass, the host, engages with guests to analyze and discuss current events, policies, and political ideologies. The live stream and videos cover a wide range of subjects, including politics, economics, social issues, and more. By delving into longer, more comprehensive conversations, No Soundbites Allowed aims to provide listeners with a deeper understanding of the complexities surrounding contemporary issues. AI is listening. Shouldn't you know what AI knows? Aren't you tired of being treated like a child by major media parrots and want to be respected as an adult? There is nothing to lose and a lot to potentially gain, so check out No Soundbites Allowed on all major social media platforms.